Darkness kills, destroys the will. Find a spark, make hearts thrill. Hear the tales of time so grim. Shine a light, don't let it dim. Heather Brown downtown, bound. True crime story she's found. In the shadows, secret stay. Need a light that finds the way.
Welcome back to Defeating the Darkness, True Crime Stories with Downtown Heather Brown. That's me, your host. I am here on our second episode with investigator Ray Wert from the Sheriff's Department, and I normally give a little preamble, but I want to get to the chase and hear what happens on this story about Ed Shin killing Chris Smith in Laguna Beach. When we left off on last episode, and if you haven't heard the last episode, stop the tracks and go back and listen to the last episode with investigator Ray Wert, where he is breaking it down, this crazy murder case that he was working on, and we're at the point where the private investigator who was hired by the management company to figure out why Ed Shin was no longer paying rent, where he is, how do we get our money? And that led him to Chris Smith's father, who was concerned about his son's mysterious disappearance, where he had been emailing him, but unbeknownst to the dad, Ed Shin had murdered his son and was sending emails pretending he was Chris to the family about how he was traveling in the Galapagos Islands and other various countries. There's a helicopter going over. There's some Donnie Brasco stuff going on right now, Ray Wert, if you can hear that.
In the hood.
It's going down in the hood.
Right here.
Right here in Orange County.
Heather Brown, right?
Yeah, like we got a really bad neighborhood going on right here. But anyway, it's too bad you're retired. You can't even protect me anymore. Right?
Nope. I'll call somebody. I know somebody we can call.
Okay, good. So we're getting back to the story about Chris Smith. His business partner, Ed Shin, diabolical a-hole, which you should go back and listen to the first episode and hear about. But anyway, he is emailing the parents of Chris Smith. And did he ever email the fiance anymore?
He just texted her that one
That's
text,
it. Like, peace out, met some chick, out of the country.
That's it. Yep.
So lame. I can't even believe that. Okay. And so cruel. Like, that's probably the cruelest thing I've heard of.
Broke her heart over text.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then the parents, Ed Shin sending emails and making it sound like he's traveling with pirates and he's perhaps suicidal because of their terrible upbringing, which they didn't have. And so the parents are getting suspicious.
Yep.
And they end up contacting Joe DeLue.
Right.
Joe DeLue goes to the business to investigate, like, the company that had been closed up, and Ed Shin stopped paying rent, and he finds blood, and then you get in the case and bring the Orange County Crime Lab, and there's blood all over the place, underneath the carpet, which you can't see to the naked eye, but even on the walls, to the naked eye, especially if you've been in law enforcement and you've ever seen blood, you're like, that's blood.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of obvious. It's like more brown than red, especially with the passage of time.
Right.
But definitely is something you can identify easily. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, with the naked eye. And then you just need a lab confirmation, and that's it.
All right. And then they do DNA testing. So they get the DNA, they do the little DNA swab of the mom and the dad, and lo and behold, it's Chris's blood. So now we know.
Right.
Chris is dead.
Right. We know we have our murder scene, and we know, unfortunately, Chris is no longer with us.
So at this point, like over a year has passed. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay. So what do you do as an investigator when you're like, oh my God, we know he was murdered here, and, is Ed Shin your main suspect at that point?
Yeah, I mean, we had done a lot of work before this, just trying to work when we heard about this. But once we see the blood evidence, now we got to go into full throttle mode, and we got to find Ed Shin. Where is this guy? First, make sure he hasn't fled the country. So I get with our surveillance team and send them out, and these teams, any law enforcement agency, especially the larger ones, they got 10, 20 people that can go out and do this stuff. And these teams went out and they find Ed Shin, and I just need to know Ed Shin's where he lives and what he does every day, what his routine is. And these surveillance crews, they are there before he wakes up, once they find his house, and they stay with him until he goes to bed. They want to know, we find out where he works. He's got a new job. He's with a different company now. And his daily routine, what he's doing, who he's hanging out with, is he meeting with people? So now we're building that part of it, and we're just in full overdrive with catching up on the last year, because this is not your conventional murder. We're working backwards from, a year plus on recreating everything.
Can I ask you something like on a very personal, I know we're telling the story, but for you, Ray, like as an investigator, is this the only case that you're working on in this moment, or do you have other cases?
I have other cases, but this is the one now. It's active. Now this is an active. We know it's a homicide, right? So it's active. But the investigators in my unit, they're getting new cases. So I'm helping them as much as I can. But really, 90+% of my time is on this.
Okay.
And lots of overtime. We get the green light. It was always great. The sheriff's department. There's no, money's not an object. We're going to solve this case or do whatever we can to solve
I love
the
that.
case. Yeah.
Go sheriffs. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. It's balls to the wall, so to speak.
Yeah. Let's find this guy and
Yeah.
get this guy and do everything we can to
Right.
uncover the evidence to prove it.
So once we locate Ed Shin, we find out he's got a house in Irvine now, because he used to live in San Clemente, which is close to San Juan Capistrano, close to Laguna Beach. Now he's living in Irvine, and his wife is pregnant with their third or fourth kid. So we have an idea that there's a pretty strong base here that he has, but it doesn't mean he's not going to flee. So we get a hold of the State Department. I want to make sure we flag his passport. If this guy tries to book any flights, does anything, I want to know about it. And we're on him with the surveillance team for about 10 days straight, about 18 hours a day. And we're learning everything we can about him. What we find out that's interesting is Ed Shin owns nothing. He owns no cars. He owns no property. And there's a reason for all this. Besides the lawsuit he has pending in Riverside, he's also got a judgment against him, as we find out in this background, from Las Vegas, when he bought a company called Legends Sports Memorabilia. And he ripped this poor couple off who was retiring, and they sold their business to Ed Shin, who they thought was this nice, young, Christian man, because that's how he portrayed himself.
Snake oil salesman.
Yep.
Shim shammer.
He bought, and they trusted him, and they only took a small amount of money up front, and he ripped them off for $1 million, took away their life savings, right? Ugh. And so we find that out, and the Coffenbergs, that's their name, they're deceased now, they sued Ed Shin, got $1 million judgment against him, but never collected a penny. When I interviewed both of them when they were alive, they couldn't get, because Ed owned nothing. and he hid everything. He had shell companies. I think he used family members to help hide his money. I couldn't prove it. And he was really a ghost financially, but that was with a purpose. And he was a chameleon, and that's what he did for a living. Ripped off people and now killed somebody. And on a side note, the Koffenbergs, he tried to, when they were suing him, he went to a person to do a home invasion on them in Las Vegas. Ed had a lot of contacts out in Las Vegas. And he had contacts that would, if he needed girls, if he needed reservations at restaurants, nightclubs, whatever, he went to somebody named Johnny Vegas. Johnny Vegas, who was a real person, we found him, obviously not his real name, would set up these, whatever Ed Shin wanted, because money buys whatever you want in Vegas. So the Koffenbergs find out about Shin wanting to do this home invasion on them in an attempt to intimidate them to stop the lawsuit. And Shin provided a gun to these two men who were supposed to do this home invasion and scare the couple, a staged home invasion, to scare the couple not to do the lawsuit, not to proceed. So Shin is just
what a sicko.
A scumbag.
He's
right?
a total scumbag.
And
he's diabolical.
Even one of the guys Shin contacted to do this home invasion went to Las Vegas Metro. Unfortunately, they said, well, all we have is you. There's no crime. You have no corroboration on this.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, here's a guy going like, dude, this guy wants me to do a fake home invasion and scare the shit out of this couple to not file a lawsuit. Like, and they did nothing?
Well, unfortunately, and I believe this guy. I found him. I interviewed him. He had a jaded past, right?
That's why you should believe him. Like, this shady's coming to the cops.
Yeah.
There must be, and
right.
if this is too much for him to get involved with, it must be something.
Yeah, unfortunately, this witness, he didn't know who he went to. I don't know. He could have, who he went to. He went to a police officer, he said. Didn't know who it was. And I'm not even sure if that was the truth or not. I have no reason to doubt that it wasn't. It seemed pretty believable to me. But anyway, so we have Shin's this financial ghost, but it's because he's got all these lawsuits on top of all the people across the country he's ripped off. There's another guy in Phoenix, Arizona. Shin got his credit card and charged $700,000. I didn't even know that was possible. $700,000 on an American Express card. They took
I got like 25 grand or something.
And and it went through. Those charges went through. I go to a Starbucks and, at an airport in Atlanta, and it's like, it's declined because
right, they flag it.
Right. But
you're like, I swear I have money. I can pay for the $4 or now at Starbucks like $6 cup of coffee, right?
Right. So anyway, that's what we find out. Shin owns nothing, but he's got a fleet of really nice cars, Audis. It's a nice car to me, cop salary,
that's
whatever,
nice.
But
hey, I was a government employee too, baby. I'm happy for my 2017.
Right.
And
so that's what we find out about Ed Shin. So now I'm really worried because he is somewhat of a ghost, and it's still within the possibility this guy's going to take off, especially the closer we start to get to him. But it's like, we got to interview people. We need more,
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, because right now, like, you got blood.
Right.
Like you at this point, have you contacted and interviewed the property management owner who said, like, he asked us to clean the carpets?
Yeah. So the property management guy, I forget his name, but he was phenomenal. Like, he's like, hey, come on in. Because he wants his money, So this guy is like, hey, it's been preserved. We lock it. Nobody comes in there without our permission. So we've got a pretty good preserved crime scene, which is very nice, especially after a year.
But if you weren't like looking for something suspicious, because I mean, the employees were in that office, right? Like, I'm assuming if you're not a cop and you're not Joe DeLue and you're not looking for like what seems wonky here, you wouldn't have seen the blood.
Well, I guess, right? I mean, because people, you go about your business and you don't notice a lot. And there's the furniture. I don't know if you want me to get to that now because it's kind of out of order, but we find the furniture that was in the office when Chris was murdered. So we can get to that later, or unless you want me doing, like I say, we're bouncing around. So
I bounce around. It's okay.
Yeah. So we'll get to that.
Okay.
That was incredible, but it goes to kind of what you were just talking about. It's just people just don't recognize that stuff, but they're not really looking for that stuff either.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, listen, you and I, like, my husband jokes around like everybody's a pervert to you. I'm like, yeah, because I know how to spot them.
Right.
And I'm like, that guy's a 290. That guy, like, you can just, I don't know. I'm not saying profiling, but there's something that happens deep inside you as I'm sure you as an investigator, as a DA, where you just you can just spot things because you've seen it so many times.
Right.
You see a pattern, you see, and you look for things. You're trained. Your eye and your mind is trained to look for things. So like right now, even on my like wall back here, like, I don't know. I've never actually stared at my wall because it's my wall and I'm not looking for blood.
Right.
But if there are a blood stain, you might be like, if you thought like my husband, if Tom Brown turns up dead, right? And you come over to my house and all of a sudden, you're looking around to see, is there any evidence that Tom Brown's been murdered? You might look and notice blood, whereas somebody who's not looking for that wouldn't. Don't you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. If I'm sitting at a desk and there's blood on the desk and there's blood on the computer screen that's on that desk and I'm using that computer and I'm using that, the plastic thing your chair sits on and the chair and there's blood on that too, like I'm going to notice, right? Mm-hmm. But in this story, there was an office worker who had all that stuff after the fact who said he didn't notice. I don't know. But so we're doing that. So we got Ed Shin's passport, everything flagged. We still have no Chris Smith. We've got search warrants in for cell phone data. And we get some data. And it shows Ed Shin's cell phone the weekend following Chris's last known communication with anyone, at least initially. Ed Shin's phone is going out to Boulevard, California, which is off, I think it's the 8 freeway, eastern San Diego County, just north of the Mexican border. And his phone is going out there late at night, Sunday night.
What date is this?
So this would have been June 6th. So 2 days after the
email
is dissolved.
The fax, the quote fax to the lawyer saying, all, unicorns and puppies. Right. We've dissolved the thing. Ed's paying me a bunch of money and some gold coins, and I'm off to the Galapagos Islands.
Right.
2 days later, Ed Shin's cell phone is pinging.
In the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere, 3 a.m.?
The first time it was more around 11. It was late at night. Okay. But there's a second one. And that one is the 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and it's out there for a while
by the Mexican border.
And
we call that a clue.
And we find out that Shin had rented a pickup truck from a car rental agency very close to the office. And when we examine or get the records on the rental car, we notice the mileage on the rental car is about the same as going from the office in San Juan Capistrano to the cell tower that Shin's phone is pinging off of.
Oh, this is good stuff.
And the mileage matches up if you map out routes. It's It's definitely in the ballpark, like very close. And why is Shin renting a pickup truck? You know, he's got
2 days after his business partner mysteriously disappears and drives to
Audis
Mexico.
Right. And why is he renting a pickup truck? Like, Ed Shin doesn't drive a pickup truck.
No, he's got all these fancy cars, right?
And we also don't have Chris's Range Rover. Where is his Range Rover, right? So we have to start looking for that. We find that up in San Jose. And
what's the story on the Range Rover?
So I send a couple of my partners up there right away, and they go up there and they start canvassing the neighborhood because it's Chris's Range Rover. It was repossessed because payments were being made on the car. So it was found in a residential area in San Jose, California, quite a ways. Like, doesn't make sense why it's up there. We can't find any ties that Chris has up there. That neighborhood, Chris has no ties according to his family and friends. So we can interview those people because they're friendly, right? So we can find that stuff out. And so a couple of my partners start passing out flyers in the neighborhood. And
the neighborhood of where the Range
San
Rover
Jose,
was
where the car
ultimately
was
repoed. Okay.
And they hit gold and they talk to a guy and he goes, "Oh, yeah, I know a friend of mine parked that car here." So now we backtrack to that friend, and then he mentions a person by, can I say his name? Or, I mean, it's out there in the public domain.
Yeah, say it.
He was charged. I arrested him. Kenny Kraft. And Kenny Kraft brought it up there. Well, comes to find out, Kenny Kraft, after Chris went missing, started working for Ed Shin as a personal assistant. So he's like a gopher. Kenny Kraft was just like, he was a gopher. He was a grifter. He was a couch surfer. He was a surfer guy too. He would live wherever he could live. And he didn't have much money, but Ed Shin starts paying him some pretty good money to work for him and go get his dry cleaning, pick up his wife, take his wife shopping, whatever, just gopher type stuff. We find out Kenny Kraft was living in Chris's apartment in Laguna Beach. Again, $4,000 a month rent, looking right at the ocean. You got this grifter, Kenny Kraft, who really doesn't have a pot to piss in, a window to throw it out, right? And he's living in this place, right? And we find out all of Chris's stuff. Ed Shin tells Kenny, "Hey, do whatever you want with this stuff. The clothes, the surfboards. Chris's surfboards are in there." And Murphy knows this. I didn't know this. But a good surfer like Chris Smith doesn't go on a surfing safari without taking his surfboards.
Yeah, no chance in hell.
I find the surfboards. Kenny sold them to a guy in San Diego.
Ooh.
So I find this guy. I recover the surfboards because I know sentimentally at some point the family is going to want those back.
Oh, you did get the surfboards.
So I got the surfboards, right?
I love that.
We got them back to the family. That was huge for them.
That's why you're on this show right now. I just want to say Ray Wert is a light in the darkness. That one act right there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That was important. Yeah, those were important.
It's so important. People don't realize how important those little tiny acts of kindness in people's darkest moment are. What it changes everything. It changes their hearts. It changes their their
so
trauma.
I was glad. I was.
Yeah, you're a good.
That was
man.
an honor to do that for the family. I couldn't get their son back, but you know, it was, I don't know, like a memento for them.
That
was
is
important.
really special and amazing. And don't underestimate the power and the value of doing that, Ray.
Yeah.
I was just talking to Bob Taft, who's do you know Bob?
Yeah. Yeah. Bob's a great guy.
I love Bob.
Great guy.
I love Bob.
He's retiring too. Yeah.
He's gone. He retired and he's
good.
on vacation, but he just did this amazing thing with this murder case where, you know, they obviously weren't able to find the victim, but he, well, they did find the victim because he brought the ashes back to the family. I don't know what I was just saying, but yeah, he was able to, bring some sense of, closure to the family by bringing back the ashes to the family, the ashes of their loved one. So it's those little acts in the middle of the darkest places for family members of crime that really just mean something.
Yeah.
They'll never forget you for doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, this case, unfortunately, still my hope is one day to find Chris and his body and give him a proper burial. For the family. But, the chances of that, there's one person who knows where Chris is, and that's Ed Shin. And unless Ed Shin can get something, he'll never give it up, because that's just the kind of animal.
No, because he wants to hold on to his bullshit story, which we're getting to. Okay, so back to the murder case. Sorry.
So we get the Range Rover. We find out about Kenny Kraft. We find out Ed
he's selling his loot. He's living in his apartment. He's working for Ed Shin,
and he's wearing some of Chris's clothes.
That's disgusting.
And he's never like raising any alarms to anybody. He's not even telling Paul any of this, right? And so we bring back Chris's car. We actually rip it off it was on a car dealership, and we tell them, hey, we're taking this car. It's evidence. We bring it back down to Orange County. We have the crime lab, just amazing group of people. I think most of them are retired now too. And they go through this car with a fine-tooth comb, right? And they get to the well in the back of this Range Rover, and they start dismantling it. They're taking screws out, and they're analyzing the screws. And they find this one screw. It goes pretty deep into the well. They find blood on this screw that had seeped down into the threads of this screw, and it's Christmas blood.
Oh my goodness.
Which to me means, we have no witnesses, but to me it means it's not like Chris cut his finger changing a tire and its blood was seeping down and it was Chris's blood. Ed, I think, based on what I project happened, used Chris's Range Rover to store Chris's body until he found how and where to dispose of it. Shin came up with a whole different story about that. So this is the same weekend. Remember Superstorm Sandy?
Kind of.
So it was on the East Coast, and it was a massive storm.
Oh, yes.
I get an alert that Shin is supposed to be flying out of New York to Canada. And I'm like, well, shit. Like, why isn't he flying out of LA? How's he getting to New York? But the alert I get, I don't know. But all I know is he's flying out of New York to Canada, to Toronto. So I call New York. I think it's LaGuardia. I talked to this New York cop out there. And he's like, ain't nobody leaving this airport this weekend because of this storm. So I'm like, okay, but where the hell is Shin? Like, if he's flying out of New York and not LA, I don't know where he's
not in LA
coming from. Right. And so I'm panicking a little bit. And the next day, so now that was Friday. Then I get a call Sunday morning that Shin is on a flight that he booked last minute. So this goes back to my narcotics days when I was doing interdiction. Last minute flight, okay, which is unusual if you're doing a plan. And so I got red flags going off all over. He's leaving. Well, Ed Shin's on probation. So I talked to the probation department in Riverside. Yeah, he can't leave the country without permission. He doesn't have permission to leave, right? Plus, I got a search warrant for his person. So his body is mine once I find it. And so now I know but I've got an hour. So I call LAX police department, get a hold of a sergeant there. And I'm like, you need to rip this guy off that flight and detain him for us. We're going to come up there and we got a search warrant and he's going to be under arrest for his probation violation. So LAX literally finds him sitting in a seat on the plane with his new boss.
He's already on the plane.
He's already on the plane. We're talking minutes before this plane is going to go.
And you say with this new boss.
His new boss, yeah.
So he started another business enterprise, and who knows if that guy would have turned up dead, right?
Right.
I'm just saying.
Right.
Okay.
So we get Ed off, and I send 3 investigators up to LAX to get him. And I asked them to Mirandize him as soon as they get him in the car on tape, and don't ask him nothing. Just Mirandize him and talk about baseball. And that's exactly what they do. And Ed Shin, who's into sports, because he had the sports memorabilia company that he, who knows, sold all. He had no intention of running this business. He got rid of all the memorabilia for money because he's got this addiction. And but he did keep a bat in his office. And I forget whose bat it was, but it was always in his office, according to coworkers. So they're bringing him back down to Santa Ana. It takes about an hour or so. And this whole time I've been doing my homework on him. And I know Ed Shin, he's a very smart person. He's very greedy. And he's going to be a hard interview to do. Because the moment he finds out that I'm there because of Chris Smith, interview's done. So I've got to keep Chris Smith's, I cannot mention Chris Smith. I need him to do it. And that was the strategy going in. And the advantage of this case is I had a fair amount of time to do a lot of homework. Whereas, you know, you're working a fresh murder case, it's happening and you got to do your interview right away.
Right.
You know, or within a couple hours, you got to do that.
You knew so much about him and his history at this point.
Right. And a lot of background on him. So
Can I interject
Yeah.
for a second? I'm sorry, because I know you're in the middle of a train of thought, but can you tell us a little bit about the Tiffany? Wasn't there a girl?
oh God.
We
Yeah,
forgot
see?
that part, and that was a good part.
Okay. So Paul, Chris's brother, when he got the email after, you know, Chris didn't show up at the airport to pick him up, he checks his email, and he's got an email from his brother, Chris, that he thinks is his brother, Chris, with a picture saying, going to Galapagos Islands, met a girl, Tiffany Taylor. Here's her picture. And she's a gorgeous model, Playboy Playmate, right? We find out she's actually a real person. We interviewed her. And within a short period of time, Paul's with Ed in Vegas, of course. And Ed has a bunch of arm candy girls.
Now, Chris is already missing.
Chris
and
is gone.
Paul's still at the company, and Ed Shin takes Paul and other members of the company,
The whole office.
to Las Vegas.
To Las
Paul's
Vegas.
there. He thinks his brother's left his fiance for Tiffany Thomas, and he, you know, doesn't know at this point something horrible's happened to my brother, and he's hanging out and he's in Vegas. All right, what happens?
Right. And, you know, Paul knew Chris's soon-to-be fiance, soon-to-be wife, and, you know, saw the picture of Tiffany Taylor. Is like, wow. So they're in this, having this dinner, and he sees Tiffany Taylor is in the room with Ed.
The girl who was in the picture.
The girl from the picture. And he's like, wait, I thought she's with my brother.
In the Galapagos
In
or
the
Africa
wherever,
or
right?
wherever they're running around. Yeah.
So Paul's like, God, my brother, this, now I got some hope, right? I could ask Tiffany, hey, where's my brother? So he goes up fully thinking this story is real and asks Tiffany, hey, my brother, Chris, have you seen him? You know, Chris Smith. He worked with Ed, right? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know any Chris. I don't know any Chris Smith. You got the wrong person. He's like, no, this is you. I got a picture of you. It's you. And Tiffany, she's telling the truth. She has no clue
Don't know your brother. Didn't go to the Galapagos Islands with him. And
nope. But Ed Shin knew Tiffany Taylor very well because he had hired her to be, like I forget the term they use, but, to farm candy, be a model and kind of show to clients, hey, we've got this very successful company and, it's projecting success, right?
Beautiful women and
right.
Blah,
that was
blah,
Ed's
blah.
version of success, right? And so obviously Paul is like shocked at this. So yeah, that's Tiffany Taylor,
okay.
and we found her, and she was very truthful, very cooperative, testified at trial, was a great witness.
Yeah,
didn't
go with Chris. Don't know him. Never traveled. Here's my passport.
Right. And Ed used her like he did everyone else. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
But you have this Tiffany Taylor information prior to pulling Ed Shin off that plane.
Yes. Paul tells us about her.
Okay.
And.
Because at this point, prior to you arresting Ed Shin, I just kind of want to set the stage for the listeners. At this point, the family realizes, right? Like,
yeah,
Chris did not leave us and run away and everything.
Right.
I do think before we get to Ed Shin and your interview with him, I just want to touch upon like the family leading up to the blood discovery, I'm guessing, right? They were holding out hope that their brother and their son was still alive, right?
Right.
And is it fair to say, like, when you it's like, I think your gut might be telling you like something doesn't feel right, but at the same time, it's almost like another part of your brain like has to believe that that's what is happening. Otherwise, your mind has to go to the darkest place.
Right. Right. And there's still a very minuscule chance that Chris could have gone, but to me, it's like almost nothing. And I've got to be very careful with the family. Unfortunately, I can't tell them this stuff because I'm worried about Steve, especially because he's a former cop, firefighter. He knows there's a lot of bullshit going on, and I don't want him confronting Shin or something worse, right?
Yeah, because emotions run high. Yeah. Like when you realize, like, oh my God, this guy might have murdered my son. Yeah. Like, God only knows what people are capable of in that desperation and that pain.
Right.
And I'm not saying that the dad would have gone and killed him, but he might have at least confronted him and tipped him off. And then next thing you know, you're out of luck with getting him and bringing him to justice for the family. Yeah. And that's always, I'm going to guess, not just this case, but every case. That's that's a line you gotta, a tightrope you gotta walk too.
And same with the coworkers, because I don't know if
are they buddies, right?
Yeah, they were very cooperative, but I didn't know they could have been dirty too, like Ed. Right?
Or Kenny Kraft. Who knows, he knew, right? Fair to say he knew that Chris was dead.
What's weird is Kenny Kraft was the first of the employees that I attempted to call before we got Ed Shin into custody. I call it Kenny. I tell him, hey, I just tell him I'm a cop. I need to meet with you. And it's about a missing person. I don't tell him a name. And can we meet? He's like, yeah, we can meet tomorrow. I'm like, perfect. It's on a Saturday. He calls me up and says, you know what? I think I might need an attorney. And I'm like, okay, bring your attorney. But this is really important and we need to do this sooner than later. So find your attorney. Kenny doesn't have an attorney, right? He sleeps on couches every day. And call me and I'll meet with you. And your attorney, whoever it is, doesn't matter. This is really important. We got to find this person. Kenny never calls me back. So I'm like, shit, tipped our hand, right?
We call that a clue.
Yeah, but, it's like, well, I mean, you got to do it. You got to pull the trigger and you got to start talking to people that are a little closer if you're going to want to make an arrest, right? So all that goes down and it's, you're worried, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, did I do the right strategy?
Yeah, I bet as a investigator,
Yeah.
you're like, because you're trying to play it right.
Right. So we got Shin, and they're bringing it back to Orange County.
Yeah.
I drive up to Santa Ana, and I'm waiting for Shin, and me and my partner, and Shin's just incredibly relaxed. Like, for a guy who was just pulled off a plane in front of his new boss and brought in handcuffs, right? And brought down to Santa Ana, and he was just super nice, very easygoing. You could tell he's educated, bright, smart. And he's like, yeah, I'm here. What's going on? Tell him about the probation thing. He's like, oh, I didn't even think about that, right? So he's playing it off very well.
Oh my God, I didn't realize I wasn't allowed to leave
Right.
the country. I'm just in this business deal, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. Mhm.
So I'm like, hey, we were just asked to take you off the plane. I don't really know. That's Riverside. We're Orange County. We're just helping them out.
Playing dumb.
And, hey, what's this Riverside thing about, right? So he goes in and he tells us everything. He tells us about the restitution he's got to pay. Tells us everything. He's like, I'm done. I paid off my restitution. I did my house arrest. I've done everything. I just got to serve out my probation. He's like, I'm Mr. Model citizen now. I made a mistake, and now I'm just serving out my probation time. Probation, it's in lieu of being in jail. You just got to be a good person, not violate any laws for the next 3 years, typically. And he's like, that's what I'm doing. I'm a family guy. I go to church. I'm a Christian. I'm a this. I'm a that. Cool, man. So we're talking. We're just going. I'm like, I can't talk about Chris Smith. I cannot do that because it'll screw everything up. And I just got to continue dialogue with him.
Until he mentions
him. And he's not mentioning him, right? We're going. So I'm like, hey, have you had any police contact since you've been on probation?
Ooh, good question.
Right? So, and if you're on probation, typically you have to report police contact to your probation officer. It's usually a condition of your probation. He's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, okay, here we go. I got pulled over for speeding, and I'm like, and I got a ticket.
Anything else?
I'm like, oh, I don't care.
Dude,
right?
you're killing me right now. Can we
Yeah.
just talk about the murder you committed where you buried your...
I'm like, oh, wow, great.
business
You
partner
got a
there.
ticket. Cool. Anything else? Like, anything else? Like, just, it didn't have to be a ticket.
Anything?
Just like, you saw a cop on a...
Perhaps Laguna Beach.
Right. So he's like, oh, yeah.
Oh, there might have
There
been.
was this
there
one
might have
time.
been this one time I was questioned about my
Right.
business partner's mysterious disappearance.
So I'm like, oh, well, tell me about that, right? He's like, well, yeah, and he tells me a story. He's like, yeah, my business partner, who's just a raging alcoholic, and he pops pills and he does all these bad things. He went missing. Like, we dissolved our business, and and I told, Laguna Beach talked to me about that. So I told him everything I knew. I totally cooperated with them. I gave them, whatever they wanted to know. And again, I'm Mr. Great Citizen. And I'm like, well, tell me a little more about this Chris Smith guy, right? So he goes into the story. He starts talking about his dissolution of the business with him, and how Chris went to the Galapagos, Africa, Argentina, Peru, all these other places. Hasn't seen him since. They signed the agreement, and since that time, he hasn't seen him since, has no idea where he is, but knows that he's a missing person. So I finally get that out of him. So with me, I have all the DNA reports. I have everything. So now I can start cutting to the chase. Let's cut the bullshit, and let's get to where we need to be for this investigation. And that's where we go next.
And is that when you're like, hey, do you want to tell us why there was a ton of Chris's blood found under the carpet in the office that you expediently vacated and didn't pay the money for? Is that what you hit him with, Ray?
Yeah, we hit him right away. I'm like, hey, let's go for it, and
was that fun? Like as an investigator in that moment when you're like, all right, here's the money. Like this is the moment where you're like, dun, 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 dun. I've been waiting for you to stop talking about speeding tickets and get to the chase so I could lay this one on you.
Right. I mean, I already had like a couple hours of bullshit.
Yeah, you're like, bullshit. Let's get to the fun stuff.
This is but now it's like really scary.
Is your heart pounding at that moment?
Yeah. I mean, you're worried because it's either going to go really
fuck
good or
this
really
up,
bad.
Ray, or it's going to go really good.
Yeah. And
okay, so how did it go?
I'm promoting. Like, I know this already. I'm like, I'm going to either go out in a ball of flames or we're going to get the killer, right?
Okay.
And
did you get the killer?
So I start confronting him. I confront him about why is there blood? Why is it Chris's blood? It's all over the place. I need my lawyer.
Oh.
Right?
Ball of flames, Ray.
So crash and burn. But I'm like, I'm good with this arrest, right?
Yeah, you're like, I already got you, baby. I just was hoping for the cherry on top,
but
right?
I got to call Murphy, right?
Yeah, and be like, I couldn't get sorry, Murphy, but I failed you.
So
I know you're perfect.
I get up.
I'm not.
And I'm like, well, Ed, you're under arrest for special circumstances murder.
Which is
degree.
the special circumstances for financial gain.
Right.
Because that's what this was all about.
And I know, even though Ed is, Shin is like, I'm just a sin. He knows what that means, right? Because he's a seasoned criminal.
Yeah, he's hardcore, stone cold, manipulative.
He knows what
monster.
He did, right? Mm-hmm. So I leave the room and I don't know, probably punch a wall or two or something on the way down the hallway.
Oh, I gotta call Murphy.
So I start, let's fill out the booking paperwork. So I'm filling out the booking paperwork. He's going to jail. And I just hope, this Sunday, I hope come Monday or Tuesday, there's a filing, And another investigator who's in the room, he gets on the phone. He calls the sergeant. Hey, tell Wert he wants to talk again. So
you're like, what?
I'm like, he just asked for his attorney, right? So I go back into the room.
That's always dicey, too.
Yeah, so, but I make it very clear to, hey, Ed, you asked for your attorney. Your attorney's not here. I can't talk to you unless you specifically want to initiate conversation with me. I said something very close to that. And he's like, I want
well played,
to talk
by the
to
way.
You.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to talk to you. I want to waive my, he knows.
Because he's a narcissist.
Yeah.
He wants to control the narrative. Okay.
Just like every other fraud case, he thinks he can talk his way. He goes, but I need to know from you, if I tell you what happened, can I go home? And I'm like, how do I know what you're going to tell me? I can't answer that.
Yeah. I'm like, no.
I mean, I just got to hear your story, what you want to talk about. And then, so he's like, okay. So we sit down, reinitiate the interview, and he goes into this about dissolving the business. They had this agreement to meet at the office after everybody went home. Nobody else was going to be there, so it could just be them two together. Chris, he again portrays as this drunk, drinking wine, flaming alcoholic, which Chris absolutely was not.
Most dudes don't drink wine.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, occasionally a glass. My husband will have one if I force him to. But, I mean, some men like wine. But, if you're going to be an alcoholic, I don't.
Yeah, in the office, yeah. So.
I think you're going tequila.
Tequila, whiskey, something like that. But, yeah, it takes a lot to open a bottle. But anyway.
Right?
So he goes into this about, we're negotiating this, but then Chris just becomes really aggressive and aggro, and he starts this physical fight with me. And, Chris and Ed were, both young, in shape, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be a hell of a fight, right? And he describes a massive knockdown, drag out fight. And he's like, fists are flying. This is like a fight to the death. And I'm like, okay, cool. But how did all the blood get up on the ceiling? And how was there blood spatter on the door? And Chris is like, because he's not telling me. It's not making sense based on the physical evidence. And he's like, oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you. So during the fight, it's really crazy. Chris and I jump up on Chris's desk and we start fighting like rams. I think he said actually like rams fighting like they're on a safari in Africa, and they're fighting on top of two grown men fighting on this Formica desk or whatever it's made out of. That's not going to sustain the body weight of two men. And that must have been how the blood got up on the ceiling. So he's explaining everything, and he goes, during the fight, I pushed him, hit him backwards, and he hit the corner of the desk and fell down and didn't move again, and he died. So that's Ed's story. And I'm like, okay, cool. Where's the body? Now we have the Johnny Vegas, and I didn't know what to do. I panicked. Well, why didn't you call the cops? Well, I'm on probation. It's not going to look good. We've been having these business.
It never looks good when you get a dead body in your office and you can't
and
explain the blood everywhere.
Right. And so
it don't look good.
Yeah, so I took off. I went for a drive. And I went and I just came up with the idea.
That's what I do, right?
Yeah, after
Isn't
you kill
that what
somebody,
you do? You're like,
I gotta clear
this
my
guy's
mind.
dead.
Yeah.
Let me go for a drive.
Well, and then he says,
about-
I went and bought a burner phone, right? So, of course, that's what every other normal person does.
I go buy burner phones all the time.
So he buys a burner phone. I'm like, well, why'd you buy a burner phone? Well, because I got to get rid of this body. I can't call the cops. So this is the only thing I know that this is the right thing to do, right? We got this very smart, intelligent businessman, and that's his answer to this.
His go-to move.
You don't call the paramedics.
Get a burner phone and figure out how to dispose.
And you call Johnny Vegas.
And call Johnny Vegas. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Every time I have a problem, burner phone, Johnny Vegas.
Right. So he calls Johnny Vegas. Yo, Johnny, I got a little situation here. I got a body, and I need someone to get rid of it. Can you help me out? Well, Johnny always helps him out. He helps him get dinner reservations, find some girls, maybe get a nice hotel room, a jet, a cab, whatever. First time, he helped dispose of a body, according to Ed. And so Johnny's like, hang tight. I'm going to have somebody call you at this phone number on the burner phone.
On the burner.
Because Shin knows we probably got his cell phone records, right? So he knows, well, I got to have an explanation of why those calls and that stuff. So he's got the burner phone. And so all of a sudden this gentleman with a Eastern European accent calls Shin and says, okay, meet me at the corner of whatever up in, I think, the Carson area. Give me, I think it was $6,000. And
is that the going price for disposing of a body? Okay.
So Shin,
sounded good to Shin.
according to his story, goes up to Carson, meets him at the corner by some whatever 7-Eleven, whatever it is, gives this guy $6,000, and then the guy says, "Leave the door unlocked at your office." Ed Shin gives him the address, and it'll be taken care of by Sunday night.
Does he give a description of the guy?
Yeah, trench coat, I think. Big guy.
Every guy is going to clean up the murder scene, wears a trench coat, right?
I think there's a movie about the cleaners or something like that. But
anyway. I think Murphy described him in the book as he sounded like Dolph Lundgren from Rocky. He was like a Russian. He blamed it on the Russians.
Right.
With the haircut. And
right.
The hair.
Square jaw, looks like a goon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So lo and behold, Shin, he's done. He goes home to his family, probably goes to church on Sunday. And lo and behold, by Monday morning, the body's gone. So now Ed begins. He talks about his frantic search to find carpet cleaners, painters.
Oh, I was going to say, did he admit to like
He
painting
did.
the office
telling
and try to
everybody
cover the
stay
paint?
home. Yeah.
Oh, and he told everybody to stay home for a week.
Right.
Did he talk about giving them the bonus?
Everything. So he that's all corroborated.
But it was just a fight gone wrong, and he
Right.
panicked, and he needed to call Johnny Vegas to call the Russian to get rid of the body.
Yeah, exactly. And
It's like a movie. Ray.
well, where's the burner phone? Well, I got rid of it.
It was
Well,
a
what was
burner.
that phone number? Because I can go back and I don't know it, right? So we have all that. So he tells us about the story, and I'm like, okay, cool. Well, you're going to jail. He's like,
Thanks for talking.
I told you everything. Like, cool, you're going to jail.
Yeah,
So-
like in anybody's planet, like a real person's planet, like even if you got in a fight with someone and they died and you called someone to dispose of the body, there's got to be some crimes you're going to jail for,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Voluntary manslaughter,
But, I mean-
involved. You're still going to jail, dude.
Yeah.
Can't
And-
be that smart.
And you're still going to jail for first
You're
degree
a dummy,
murder.
Ed Shin.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
You're still going for special circs, right? And of course, that's not my, I'm throwing it out there because I'm hoping, Murphy's
You're
going
hoping Murphy actually
back me
files
up
a
on
case.
that one, right? So, but I think Shin was shocked because this is the first time in his life he couldn't get out of something. He was able to con his parents. He was able, for his kidnapping. He's been over a decade of conning people and not going to jail.
Yeah.
Right? Even the case from Riverside, he did house arrest.
Probation. Yeah, that's
He never went to-
ridiculous.
he never went
I
to
wish
jail.
someone would give me house arrest
Yeah.
at this point in my
Yeah.
life.
And Shin
take it
had
for like a year
trainers
or
coming
two.
to his house and working out. Like, no big deal. So he's never been to jail. And he's like, this is, so, we're still not done. We still got to do a lot of work, as you know, as a prosecutor. There's a lot more to do. Right?
Yeah, it ain't over just because you arrest the guy.
Yeah.
Now you got to actually go to court and prove
Well,
it.
that now I could talk to all the coworkers, right?
Right, because you're not worried they're
I'm
going
not
to
worried.
dime him off.
Right.
And they give you all kinds of intel, right?
Right. So we get a lot of good stuff, and Murphy files a case.
Thanks, Murphy.
Yeah, good dude. Good dude. Despite what we said,
I
earlier,
know. We
right?
love you, Murphy.
And
Just got to rib you a little bit because you're perfect.
what's ironic is I promote, and of course, a new sergeant has to go to jail, like a new deputy. I go into the jail, the men's central jail, where I worked as a deputy, as a sergeant, and I'm running chow hall, and I see Ed Shin. He sees me.
He's like, wait a minute. That's that asshole that arrested
Right.
me at the
But
airport.
he's got his bright white tennis shoes, and he got a court order to have the tennis shoes and all that stuff. And
What?
he's very polite to me, but I noticed he's in line for his dorm. He's near the back of the line, and which back then, I don't know how it is now, your people who are running things in the jail or for that tank are in the back. He's in the back already. This has only been a couple months.
I didn't know this. What's this? Like,
Yeah,
this is
so it's
juicy
kind of like a
inside
pecking
scoop.
order, like you had your
Why
cars.
would the guy who's in charge be the back guy?
I don't know.
Wouldn't they be the first guy? Like, I'm getting the good food and you guys get the leftovers? No?
Yeah, but back then that, and it
Okay.
probably still is the same now, but you had your whites, they're all together, but, and it was a pecking order. Same thing with the whites, the Asians, the Hispanics, the blacks. The heavies, or the people with the most juice for an inmate, which, they kind of run the show for maybe that race, they're toward the back of their race in line going into chow hall. So I don't know. That's the politics of the jail, but that's where he was.
Oh,
And
you think he's running stuff in prison?
hell yeah, he is.
Yeah, hell
Guaranteed.
yeah, he is.
He's probably one of those guys in California, the inmates in prison, when they had all that fraud with unemployment. I guarantee you he was probably, I don't want to presume he's guilty of anything, but there's a good chance he was running some financial
Some
scams.
shady financial scams. Yeah. That's what they do. And listen, I've talked to plenty of inmates, and they run all kinds of shit out of the prisons.
Right.
Scam, like they're snake oil salesmen, right? Like Murphy says in his book, Jim Shammers.
And what's ironic is he was housed with someone you prosecuted, who escaped.
Oh, is that the grand finale of Murphy's book in the Nairi?
Well, yeah, that's your chapter in his book on Nairi, but horrible case. Shin was housed with that guy, and a few weeks before I get there, during Smith's interview, I asked him if he wanted to write something to the family.
Oh, yes.
And on certain cases, you would ask that. And typically the answer is no. But I've had 2 cases where they said, yeah, I'd like to write something to the family.
Was he acting in this interview as if he was sorry that Chris died?
Completely.
Because wasn't his story like, we got in a fight and then I left, and then I expected him to like be gone when I came back, but oh my God, he was dead.
Yeah.
Kind of bullshit. And so it was like, oh my God, I'm going to go to jail, but this was an accident. So like, what do? I call Johnny Vegas and dispose of the body and then pretend I'm him for, did you like say like, what about all the bullshit emails? Did you confront him with that stuff?
And he admitted that. He admitted to sending
he admitted
the emails.
He was the psychopath that was sending.
And we asked him about the emails, and he said, "Yeah, I did it. I feel really bad. I did it, and I finally stopped because I knew it wasn't right to keep doing."
Oh, he's so full of shit. He was just tired of doing it.
He admitted for 6 months he did it. Right.
He was just tired of doing it. Like, oh my God, he's been gone enough. Get over him.
Right.
I guarantee you that was his sentiment in heart. You have that letter before you?
Do.
Read it. Read it, Ray. We want to hear it. Our listeners want to hear it.
Yeah, and to preface this, Shin doesn't mean a word that he says.
No, he's so full of shit.
Dear Smith family, no words I say can replace your loss. However, I'm hoping that at the very least I can lead you closer to closure with this letter. I want to apologize regardless of the circumstances that surrounded the incident.
Oh, it's an incident. You mean where you actually brutally murdered our son for money, you asshole.
Right.
That's what you mean.
For the loss of Chris at my hands. I'm solely to blame and will take full responsibility of the outcome of his death. Not his murder, his death. I do truly believe he is with God, and I hope that someday I could be given the opportunity to help you locate his body. I pray to God, and more importantly to you, that there can be forgiveness. But even if there isn't, please know I will be sorry to my very end for what happened to Chris. Regretfully, Ed Shin.
Bullshit. Okay, the incident, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't admit anything in that letter. That's such bullshit.
And this is, again, he's a fraudster, and now he's a killer, and this is his role. He doesn't mean a word of this. He knows where the body is, and he hasn't done anything to try to find the body with us. We asked him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay,
because he didn't know.
Oh, I don't know where his body is.
Because the Eastern European guy.
Oh yeah, what did I say his name was from Rocky?
Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, Dolph Lundgren buried him.
Dolph has it. Yeah.
Dolph never told me where his body was. Bullshit. Okay, did you confront him with like, dude, why were you out in Mexico at 3 a.m. with your pinging records, right?
So, unfortunately, again, the story I was all over the place, right? Because there was so much stuff going on. Those records came in after the interview.
Oh, okay.
So my intention was to do that, but because he was boarding a plane, it sped up. I couldn't wait for some of the stuff to come in.
I got you. Okay.
Unfortunately, now, he's got an attorney. He actually does have an attorney this time. 2 very good defense attorneys, by the way, who I respect very much. And
Was it Ed and Al
Ed
Stocky?
Wellborn and
I
Al
love
Stocky.
Ed. Ed's the greatest. Al Stocky, he's good too. He's great.
Yeah, very
I
good attorney.
I like Ed better.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No offense, Al, but
Yeah.
I like Ed better. But just because I worked with him as a DA.
Okay.
Ed's great.
Yeah.
But when you guys went to trial, right, you obviously had to testify to a lot of this
Right,
at
at the
trial.
preliminary hearing, and then by the time trial came, I was retired. Right.
Oh. So they didn't even call you for trial?
No, because the way Murphy,
You stole his thunder, Murphy.
but
Murphy streamlines
played
things.
it. He played it so well.
He
to
didn't
where-
he did not put on. Okay, so. All right, so I've been playing a little dumb about the story. I'm not going to lie. But because you and I just did like a TV show
Right.
about this, right? Called Don't Open the Door, about
Yep.
this case. And I did not work this case. I'm not taking any credit for working this case, but I do know about the case. Murphy's told me at the case. You've told me about the case.
Yeah.
And I've read all the reports. And Murphy works for ABC, so he can't do any other shows
Right.
that want to cover this case.
Right.
So this show called Don't Open the Door.
Right.
It's a Canadian show. It'll be
Right.
out. You can watch it if you want to see us talk about this case
Right.
again. But we went on to talk about the case. So I know a lot about the case, and it's in Murphy's book, which is called The Book of Murder. And I've, promoted it before, but you should read it because it's a great book about a bunch of different crazy murder cases in Orange County. And one of them, chapter 9, not the finale, the one Murphy and I did together, but it is
Vegas Baby.
It's
is
called
the
Vegas
yeah.
Baby. That's the chapter 9. Is that what it
Chapter
is?
9,
Chapter
yeah.
9. It's a great story that Murphy tells. And so I've talked to Murphy about this case and you and everything, but I asked Murphy about the trial. A, one, because Murphy's a winner. B, they came back with a special circumstance. He
Right.
did not get, they didn't seek the death penalty on this
Correct.
one. He got life without parole.
Correct.
They came back in 40 minutes.
Yep.
And for tactical reasons, and listen, I love to rip on Murphy. I love Matt Murphy. Okay. I love to rip on him just because I think he secretly enjoys it a little bit because nobody else puts him in his place but me. But no, I love teasing Matt Murphy, but I've seen Murphy in trial on cases we worked together and those that he's done obviously alone, but he is brilliant
Yeah.
at cross-examination.
Yeah.
That is his specialty.
Yep.
Okay. There's no one who can cross a witness, especially an expert witness, but
A defendant.
a defendant. He is brilliant on
Yeah.
cross-examination. And so Murphy wanted that opportunity. And if he were to play this bullshit interview, yes, he admits that he's the one that killed Chris Smith, like ultimately led
Right.
to his death, the incident,
Right.
right? But he gives Ed Shin his defense in
Yeah.
playing that interview.
His story is out there without
His story
him having to.
without him having to testify
Yeah.
and be cross-examined and to give details and to answer Murphy's questions.
Right.
And so now that, as a prosecutor, makes your case much more difficult to prove when it's all circumstantial. And it is a no-body cold case.
Right.
Okay. This is a no-body cold case.
Right.
Which, you have to prove that the person's dead,
Right.
right? Without a body to
Right.
prove they're dead. Because normally you have a body, you have the coroner, and this is the cause of death.
And
So
a jury wants a body.
a jury wants a body
Yeah.
and they want to know that they're really dead. Because what if, Chris jumps
What if
up
he
and-
is traveling the world?
right?
Right, yeah.
And defense attorneys can be like, "Oh my God, there's Chris Smith," and if the jury even turns their head, then they can argue that is reasonable doubt, right?
Right. They bring in one witness who says they were in Argentina and they saw Chris Smith.
yeah, even if it's a bullshit
They
witness,
just need one juror, right? You know that.
exactly.
Yeah.
I do know that. So cold cases are, especially no body cold cases,
Yeah.
are incredibly hard to prove.
Yeah.
But with all of these circumstances, and Murphy was able to call Johnny Vegas and say, like, no, didn't dispose of a body, didn't get him a fake passport.
Right.
That guy's full of shit. Tiffany Taylor, that wasn't her real name, but he was able to find her at the last minute for the record.
Yeah.
And like, that was dicey.
Yeah.
And she came in and said, I don't know that guy. I didn't go to the Galapagos Islands. Here's my passport. Never traveled there.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things that Murphy, but more importantly, he did not play that interview,
Right.
which forced Ed Shin, if he wanted any chance of mitigating,
Right.
to get a lesser than life without parole for the first degree murder with
Right.
special circumstances, he needed to testify and
Yep.
give this bullshit version that he gave to you,
Right.
which allowed Murphy to cross-examine him.
Yep.
And I know, because I read Matt Murphy's book and spoke to him about this, that he also, when Ed Shin was on the stand, he questioned him, like, just, for closure, like, where's the body? Where's
Right.
Christmas's body?
Yeah.
And Shin refused to answer that question.
And even, asked Shin, like, hey, I've got a search team out in Boulevard, California right now, where your phone was 2 times. Tell us right now, and I'll make a phone call, and we'll go find the body, right? Shin, I don't know. But Murphy played that just,
He's so
cornered
good.
Shin.
He's so good at the final question.
And Shin even said during the interview that we did that he trained himself not to bleed. Because there's no blood in this office of Shin.
Of him, like, to corroborate his, like, we got in a big fight.
And this is
because
a
there'd be some of his blood there.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Of life and death fight, right? So he trained himself not to bleed. And Murphy used that
I'm
line.
training myself not to bleed.
Yeah.
If anybody actually knows the secret to do that,
Yeah.
please let me know. Yeah.
Murphy wrecked him. Absolutely wrecked this guy on the stand. And it was, phenomenal. It was great.
Yeah, that's
was
awesome.
great.
And the jury convicted him in like 40 minutes.
40 minutes. And, the family got to watch this. So in their minds, they got to hear all this. I'm sure incredibly painful, but also like vindicating to, that their son didn't actually abandon the family. He was murdered by this sociopath, greedy, scum of the earth guy. And, I hope, and I think they've resolved to, we're not going to find our son. Our son is not of this world anymore. He's in heaven. And they've accepted that. Just a super nice family. We went to dinner afterwards, and just a great, great family.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So.
That's awesome. And I mean, not awesome. It's horrible that this happened to their son, but it's. I love the fact that Murphy was able, and you and your whole team was able to bring some justice.
Yeah.
And just, even just returning the surfboards to be a little bit of light in the dark. I mean, that's the darkest hour.
Yeah.
That's the darkest thing they're ever gonna, God willing, experience.
Paul got those surfboards, and I'm sure is using them, to this day, and treasuring them like Chris would probably want him to do. Yeah.
And I do know from Murphy's book and Murphy himself that they had a beautiful ceremony out in the water with the surfers, and Murphy has a picture. Yeah, they had a little paddle out to kind of just memorialize and celebrate the life of Chris and what he loved, which was surfing. And that photograph, hangs in Murphy's office today. And so, wow, what a crazy story. And God bless you, Ray Wert, for, just fighting the good fight to help victims of crime and their family members. And it's a fascinating story. And I'm just grateful and humbled and thankful that I got to be a part of it, just to talk to you about it. Because, whenever you hear these stories, it just even if I don't even work the cases, they kind of steal a little piece of my soul when you think about.
This is kind of therapy in a way,
to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm sure your cases too. You get a little bit of that, and then you kind of remember, like, hey, the family, even though they went through this horrible tragedy, the best outcome you could possibly give to them which is really not
Nothing.
great. Nothing compared to their loss. It was the best you could ask for, you know?
Yes.
And
you gave them a piece of Chris back.
yeah.
And you gave them understanding of what actually
Right.
happened to their son. So, because
Yeah.
a lot of times trauma just replays like, what if, where is he? What could, this could have
Right.
happened. This could have happened. The woulda, shoulda,
Right.
coulda, woulda, right? And then to know, okay, this is what happened to our son and he's dead. And we have a surfboard and the guy who murdered him in cold blood
Right.
is never going to see the light of day.
Right.
Because he was a monster and the DA who was assigned to this case proved it.
Right.
And the investigators did everything they could to
Yeah.
make that happen.
And the crime lab,
And-
they
and
never get enough credit.
They don't.
You know,
they
really
don't.
But
God bless you,
phenomenal.
Orange County Crime Lab, because
Yeah.
you have helped me also. Thank you.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord. You have helped me a zillion times on cases, sexual assault cases, murder cases.
Right.
And that's a hard job.
Yeah.
That is a
I think
very
it was
hard.
Steve Galuzian.
Yeah,
know,
I
shout
love
out
that
to
guy.
him.
Yeah, I
He
love
was
that guy.
on this.
Annette, was she on it?
Annette McCall.
She's amazing.
I'm sure she had a part
She
of it.
probably
There's
did.
just, they got a whole team. Even, the photographers, just because they bring the pictures to the jury, right?
Yeah,
And,
it makes it come alive, and they testify, and they
Right.
know their stuff,
Right.
and they do it, and
Yeah.
they're great. That's amazing. All right, well, wow, gosh, Ray, amazing story, amazing work. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming alongside all these victims all your career.
Well,
I mean-
I'm honored to be here because I've listened to the guests that were here before and the work that you've done. And wow, you had some incredible people, like stuff that I could never have done. Victims of crimes, advocates, just
There are so many people, Ray,
Yeah.
that I have come across in my path and my career that just shine the light.
They do.
That's the whole thing. It's like, if you can't find the light, be the light, and
Right.
you are the light. Like that, the surfboard thing just sticks in my bones. Like those are the little tiny things that we can do as human beings to help other people
Right.
who are in their darkest hour.
Yeah.
And
we need more of that.
we do need more. I love that.
More of that,
We do
yeah.
need more of that. So, yeah, on that note, we're going to have to call this a night because it's cold out here and it's been a long night. But gosh, what a great story. Thank you so
right.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you're amazing. And I'm really proud of you and the work that you did and all that you did to help the Smith family just to bring some closure to this. So thank you. And thank you, Matt Murphy. Murphy.
I guess.
I love you, Murphy, but come on, stop being so perfect. Anyway, that's a wrap. Until we meet again, if you can find the light, be the light like Ray Wert was in this case, in solving the case against Ed Shin, who murdered Chris Smith. And Ray was able to bring some light to the family of that case. And so was Matt Murphy for that matter. So thank you all and God bless you and have a great night. So long now.
Be the light, shine so